It's Iron Man 3, which is a sequel not only to Iron Man 2, but The Avengers. Which I guess also makes it a sequel to all of these movies. And a sidequel to these movies. And a prequel to this movie. Ow.
Today is the first day of what's left of your life.
Do I summarize the plot?
I'm gonna offer the choice. Do you want an empty life or a meaningful death?
You're not a man. You're nothing more than a maniac.
I'm not afraid of you. No politics here. Just good old-fashioned revenge.
Iron Man 3 is directed by Shane Black. It stars Robert Downey Jr., Gwyneth Paltrow, Don Cheadle, Jon Favreau, as well as Guy Pearce, Ben Kingsley, and Rebecca Hall. In this one, it's a couple months after the events of the Avengers, and Tony Stark is having panic attacks, he can't sleep, and there's a terrorist named the Mandarin who has been setting off bombs in various locations throughout the world, as well as the United States. And in one of these attacks, Tony's former security guard, Happy, played by Jon Favreau, is injured, and so Tony basically says on the television, "Hey Mandarin, come and get me, this is my address," and it's the scene from the trailer with the helicopters that blow up Tony's house. He is attacked, and he has to escape, and he finds himself in Tennessee in the middle of the winter, and the Mandarin's cronies are coming after him. And he basically has to use his own intelligence and ingenuity with the assistance of this like 12-year-old kid who's actually a really cool sidekick. He's a pretty funny character. The two of them just kind of rib each other the entire time. And that middle part of the movie, all that stuff where Tony doesn't have the suit, is pretty much the best part of the movie. And then of course it leads to the last third, the big action scene. There's many reveals and twists along the way. A few of them will upset purists. With that said, I liked this movie a lot. I would recommend it. The thing with all these Iron Man movies is the acting is usually the best part, and the action kind of lacks. And it was fine in the first movie as an origin story. I felt the first movie was very simple, very straightforward, and everything was very appropriate. And then with the second movie, they tried to ramp it up a bit too much. But with this movie, it strikes the right balance. It's a little bit bigger than the first one without being so overblown. I like this as much as the first one. I do like the first one a lot for being as simple and straightforward as it is. This one has a bit more of a twisty plot, which I appreciated more. I like what Shane Black is doing with this franchise. He breathes a new life into this after the second one. The second one's not that bad of a movie. The second one is just very awkward, and it tries really hard to be bigger than Iron Man 1, and it just comes off clumsy. With that said, the last action scene in this movie, it gets to a point where there should be a logical conclusion, and then it just keeps going for about 10 minutes, which is fine. It wasn't as bad as in some movies. That was also kind of a problem in Skyfall, but at the same time, Skyfall is a really good movie, so it didn't really bother me that much. But I do think that middle chunk of the movie, the second act, is the best part of this movie. It's really well handled. I like all the characters and all the actors in it, and I liked what was happening. I liked all the twists. I liked this movie. I want to quickly get into a bit about the Marvel Universe and my thoughts on it. I do generally like the movies that have been coming out connected to this Marvel Cinematic Universe. I liked the first Iron Man, as I said. I don't think the second Iron Man is terrible, but it's just very clumsy and mishandled. I liked the Captain America movie. It's a bit hokey, but I liked it. I thought Thor was lame overall as a film, but visually I thought it was the most interesting, despite its Dutch dangles. I thought it was the most interesting of all the Marvel movies. I didn't like the Hulk, either of them. I haven't really liked either of the Hulk movies. But I really didn't like the one with Edward Norton. I thought that one was just kind of lame. Whereas at least Ang Lee's had some ambition. You can complain about it fucking up the origins, you can complain about it being a mess, but at least it had ambition. Whereas they played it way too safe with The Incredible Hulk with Ed Norton. And that's kind of my problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general, is it's fascinating on a production and marketing level, but aesthetically, it is so white bread. It's way too middle of the road for me. I don't feel like we're gonna see something really unique or different come out of any of these movies at any point. You say what you will about the Dark Knight trilogy. I know it's cool to hate that shit now, but you saw things in those movies, and Christopher Nolan created visuals in those movies that you haven't seen in comic book movies before, that like actually were pretty like inventive and progressive, especially with a movie like Inception. I know that doesn't count, but Christopher Nolan can do that. I don't think we're going to see any sort of like a unique auteur voice come out of this cinematic universe at any point. With that said, I do think that the Avengers had a little bit more visual flair than all the others. It felt a little bit different. It was a little bit funner. It was a little bit bigger. It was better. But like in 20 years, when this is all over, when this Marvel Cinematic Universe is over, and people look back on it, they're gonna say all these movies look and feel the same, and that's a shame, because like these are good directors who are attached to these people. They're good actors, and every movie that's coming out, it's the next Marvel movie, and people are gonna start to be like, oh, it's the next Marvel movie. It's gonna be exactly like all the others. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But that's big. I'm not a huge Marvel fan in general. Objectively, I can recognize these movies as good or bad when they are, but at the same time, I'm just not a huge fan of these characters. They don't really do anything for me. When I read comic books before all the malarkey that's been going on in the comic book world, I was a DC fan, and now I don't like DC for what DC has been doing. So as a comic book fan, there's really nowhere to go. But I do generally like these films, but I just think they're kind of bland. One or two watches is all I can really get out of these movies. But hopefully we do get a voice that steps into this Marvel universe and really does kind of go off the beaten path and does something really different and unique and interesting. We probably won't see it, but I'm a dreamer. How about you? So overall, I would recommend this movie. If you've seen the other two, if you saw the Avengers, if you like any of the Marvel movies, if you like the Marvel universe, then yeah, watch this movie. You probably already have if you've seen the box office numbers. I really didn't need to make this review.
I can't sleep.